Welcome to the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast, everybody. My name is Paul Delegro, your host, and my guest today is Mike Kyle. He is the Managing Director of Technology Recruitment at CodaSearch. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Well, happy to have you. You know, we're gonna talk about a subject that's kind of near and dear to my heart today, and by the name of your company, CodaSearch. You've been in the kind of the recruitment industry for a long time and technology for a long time. So two things that I am kind of very interested in. So tell me a little bit about your journey, Mike. You know, how did you get to this point, you know, before we start digging into the ways to increase your profile and all that good stuff?
So I'm a failed computer science major. So I thought I wanted to write code for a living. Started, college as a computer science major and realized I hate writing code. Ended up kind of getting into some sales and project management type stuff, and went into a recruiter's agency almost 20 years ago. And they said, "You want to be a recruiter?" And I went, "No, y'all are idiots." 20 years later, I'm still doing it. So yeah. It's
funny how that works. Hey, by the way, I have a math and computer science degree. So
smarter than me, I realized I hated it.
Well, I should have gotten out. This is probably the better answer, but I ended up staying with it and getting a degree, but never really used it, to be honest with you. But that's beside the point. So you've been doing this. So you've been in the recruitment business for about 20 years, and so so much has changed in recruitment though over the last 20 years. Speaking of 20 years, I mean, back 20 years ago, you had recruiters that you had to actually call and set up interviews with and mail them your resume. What do you see the differences are now, then and now?
So one of the biggest ones is you don't meet your candidates in person. When I first started, you brought candidates into the office. Yeah, everybody wanted that, real fancy real estate where in the white collar space. And so people would get dressed up to come in and meet with a recruiter. Now it's all digital.
Yeah.
I've got candidates that I've worked with for 10, 15 years. And the last time I saw them in person might have been 10 years ago. So it shifted to a more broader space. Sure. But the one thing that really has never changed is this has always been about the people and the relationships. So I still text with candidates that I've placed throughout their career.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I've got a few over the years. I've had some relationship with some recruiters that I feel like they're friends of mine, and I've never met them.
Nope, I've got a handful of them that we may only talk every 3 to 5 years when they're kind of going through that transition. But I'm like, wait, you've got kids. The last time we talked, you were doing this. What's going on now? And it's just, it's a partnership.
Yeah. I think this whole virtual thing, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, can hurt you and it can help you. Cause I do feel like your presence is not felt over a video camera. It can be, some, but I don't know. It can hurt you if you have a strong presence and help you if you don't, I think, if that makes sense.
It is. And we're 3-dimensional people, but we try to build relationships in 2-dimension, and that's hard when you're trying to represent yourself and talking to people. I've done video interviews and I've done face-to-face. In the face-to-face, you get a lot more body language.
Sure. Yeah.
That most people talk with their hands. I'm guilty of it, but they end up staying below the screen. So you never really get to see that type of engagement, and you feel weird sitting in a chair, just staring at a camera versus talking to people. And panel, if you ever have to have a video with more than one person at a time, it's really awkward because you don't feel like you're making eye contact.
Yeah. And that, like you said, you get into a room with people, they don't see your body language. They don't see what you look like up close and personal. And that all is part of, your role, right? Your persona.
Absolutely. Nobody's this straight-laced, two-dimensional avatar looking thing that we have to represent ourselves in a video. We're three-dimensional people. We like interacting with people, even if we don't want to necessarily have to be dealing with people every day. We're kind of social animals.
Yeah. You know, I've often said it. I think COVID changed a lot of this, but it was coming before that, though. Like, more and more video calls were happening. But now with COVID, I mean, most everyone's comfortable with video calls.
It is funny that, being in the tech space for years, tech's been saying, I don't need to be in the office to do my job. I can do this remotely. But companies didn't want to really make special exceptions for certain groups of people. And then, the joke was, what drove your digital transformation? And almost most companies, it was always, well, COVID forced us to.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was hard. I remember, in the early days, you would do a meeting with somebody and you put a blazer on and sit in front of your camera in a jacket and a blazer because you were so used to that. Now I have to remind people, don't go too casual. It's still an interview. It's still a first impression. Throw a collar on, do something that makes you look like a professional.
Well,
but it did. It really made a big difference.
Now that's funny you say that. We had a call on Monday, Tuesday with a customer, and one of my SEs didn't realize he had to turn on his camera. So he went silent for like a minute. Then he messaged me, goes, dude, I had to put a shirt on. He goes, I didn't realize you were going to get on camera. So he had to stop his camera, run and get a shirt, put it on. And so I got a chuckle out of that. But kind of to your point, right?
No, we take it for granted that, yes, I'm casual at my house, but this is a meeting of some sort of business nature.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Mike, I know you've got your own kind of philosophies on how to look for a job. Let's start out with some of the basics. Like, what's the goal? When you're looking for a job, what should you be doing and what's your goal?
So the biggest thing is talk to everybody. Anybody, everybody, just have conversations. And I think the biggest mistake everybody makes, they go, I have to have the perfect resume that's going to explain everything. And people forget the entire reason you have a resume is to give somebody enough information that they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
You just want to talk to people. And every conversation's a good conversation. Even if it's to help you figure out what you don't want to do, you just need to talk to people.
I agree with that. I used to take any interview if I was looking for a new job, just to take interviews, even though looking at what they were looking for probably wasn't a good fit. I'd do it anyway. Just what's the worst that can come out of it? You make a friend, right?
Well, and especially if you're someone who hasn't really had to look for a job. And I've seen a lot of that over the last 2 or 3 years, that a lot of people that have never looked for jobs in 20, 30 years are finding themselves caught in a layoff. That happened to me. And I don't know how to interview. If you think about the last time somebody was on an interview, it might have been a while. Well, go take some of those interviews that you're not super excited about, because if you're going to mess up on something you don't want versus, hey, I've got an interview for my dream job and now I need to do a mock interview and a whole bunch of other things. And you're stressing out because your last real interview was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Get the nervousness out of the way, right? Go in a couple of just to, be yourself and get some experience interviewing again.
Yeah. It seems silly, but it's a skill like anything else. It's practice.
Yes. Yep. So and I agree with your first point, by the way, Mike, because I espouse to that theory of just put a list together of 100 people, whatever it might be, and just call people. Just start saying, hey, people, I'm looking. Keep me in mind. This is what I'm looking for. And eventually you will land something with all your efforts. I'm 100% convinced of that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously that's what happened to me in the last month. So
yeah,
that was, it was funny. I got this advice from someone who said, never ask for a job, always ask for advice. Because if you ask for a job, you get a whole lot of advice you don't want. But if you start asking smart people for advice, all kinds of interesting opportunities come up.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when I started searching myself, I just asked people in my network, I'm like, hey, you've known me a long time. I'm in the middle of this for the first time in, 30 years. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
And conversations were easy at that point.
Because you weren't asking for something.
Absolutely. I just
Yeah.
wanted, hey, can I get some time? Can I get some
Yeah.
opinion from you?
That's great advice. Because people always bow up, like get a little defensive when you ask them for something, right? So that's actually great advice. I like that.
And it worked, because what's the worst they're going to say? No. But
Yeah.
you're not asking for anything other than, hey, can I have 10 minutes of your time just to get your opinion?
Yeah.
And you can go back to people you haven't talked to in a long time. Most people like to help. And when you ask for help, most people in general will do it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if it's some random stranger, no, but anyone who's a friend will be happy to help.
Yeah. Old coworkers,
Yep.
old vendors, old employers, it doesn't matter. It's just as long as and I laugh. Somebody said, well, we didn't really get along. If it was 10 years ago, they probably don't remember why you didn't get along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're going to, time heals all wounds type thing, and just ask them. And if they don't want to talk to you, they won't.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised who will.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's get down to some of the kind of the nuts and bolts and the kind of the blocking and tackling of it. I'm looking for a job. What are some of the things I should be doing on my own? Now, you're a recruiter, so you're looking for guys probably on LinkedIn that have profiles, decent profiles. So what's your advice? Where do we start?
So you have to have a profile that matters on LinkedIn. That is by far, when I'm looking at people, the first thing I see when I look at their LinkedIn is, does it tell me anything about them?
Yeah.
And do I want to learn more? That's probably the biggest thing when you see if I see a LinkedIn profile, they don't have a picture, it's very bland, it's not engaging, I'll just skip to the next one.
Yeah.
Because I've run a search and I've got 200 profiles to look at, and I want to be able to look at something and go, ooh, that looks interesting, I want to know more. And most people really fail at presenting themselves on LinkedIn. I did.
Yeah, me too. I'm still not, I mean, my profile's decent, I would say, but again, I could use some improvement, no question.
And I did. As I was probably like most people. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn since 2003, 2004, something like that, but I wasn't using it.
Yeah.
It was only a year ago that I really decided, hey, I should probably use LinkedIn versus just having LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's been a very interesting journey.
Okay, so tell me about it. Now you've obviously used it. You're doing very well at it from the stats that you sent me. We can get into that in a little bit. What advice do you give me? Right, the guy that's going out looking for a job. What do we do here?
So I started a year ago, and I got challenged. Actually, it was April 26th of 2024 to post every day. And as of April 26th, it'll be 1 year that I did that every single day for a year.
Okay. What type of things, see, to me, content's the issue, right? Being creative and having good content is the issue. What type of things were you, posting?
Things I know. So most people think they have to be an expert to talk about something.
Right.
You don't. You just need to know something that someone else doesn't know. And when I talk with people about how to do this, and because I hear this all the time, well, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, well, talk to you 3 years ago. What's something that you've learned in the last 3 years that you wish you would have known 3 years ago? It can be technical, it can be personal, it can be educational. It doesn't matter. But that's your audience, is the you from 3 years ago, and pick something that you can talk about for 10 minutes. Yeah. If you can talk about it for 10 minutes, well, you clearly know something that's worth sharing. Yeah. And most people fail at sharing information.
I would agree with that, Mike, for sure. 100%.
and you can get into and what's funny is with all these AI tools that have come out there, it's made the ability to format and copywriting and those types of things that were its own skill that made it really hard maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's made it much easier where I can take the mess of knowledge that exists in my brain and put it on a screen that's an easier to consume model.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier. And when you're building your LinkedIn profile, makes it a lot easier because most people can tell me what they did. They just stink at sharing it and putting it in a way that's easy to digest. Well, throw it in any of your favorite chat model. Ask ChatGPT to take, hey, here's my resume and put this in a way that actually talks about the impact of what I made. Oh, great. I couldn't have thought about it, but it does a really good job of taking that and making it something usable and exciting.
Yeah. So before we get into some of the results, when you're building your profile, and what I mean by that on LinkedIn is, putting a picture, education, different things, accreditations, all this stuff. What are the basics that people should be doing to build their profile on LinkedIn?
So I've looked at a lot of research on this topic on what's the first thing that everybody sees on a profile. And it's that banner at the very top of your profile.
Okay.
Most of the time, if I look at somebody's banner, it's a picture or it's a generic image and it's wasted real estate.
Okay.
And you can go put something in there that says something about you. That one big thing or two big things that you do that makes you special. I joke, it's what's your superpower? If what is the biggest problem you solve for a company? And put it right there in big, bold letters. And you can use tools like Canva. They even have, hey, give me a LinkedIn banner template.
Yeah.
And put some text up there that says something. And it just is the number one thing you can do to get people to stop because they're going to read it and go, ooh, what's that?
Yeah. Now you got me thinking about that as I'm on LinkedIn a lot too. And as I see people with good profiles, it does make me stop and look.
Yeah, it's that first thing when somebody clicks on, hey, let me see their profile, who they are, what they do. It's the biggest piece of real estate. It's at the top of the screen. And you just want some kind of hook there that will make them stay on your profile.
Yeah.
So that's always number one. Number two is your headline. That's that little thing under your name that says, VP of sales or software engineer. And most people make it their title.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is if you ever comment on somebody's post or you make a post yourself, that little 130 character tagline shows up on every post. So if you're a rock star developer, you're like, I build code that doesn't fail. That sounds so much better than Java developer.
Right.
And so talking about those types of superpowers is what your headline is. It's not your job title because it's a chance for you again to say, this is the problem I fix. And if those two things are done first, it helps everything else. Experience, your about section is all important. The about one, what most people don't know is when you look at somebody's profile, you only see the first 3 lines.
Yeah.
Then there's that little button at the end that says see more. So the whole point of those first 3 lines of your about section is to make somebody click see more. And I will tell you, I rarely click see more. If you can't tell me in 3 lines why I should want to know something about you, I'm not going to go through extra effort.
Yeah. If you haven't grabbed me by then, I'm done.
Right. I'm going to move on to the next one. And then there's a hidden feature called the featured section on LinkedIn. And it's a way for you to pin something that's important. Now, if you're an active job seeker, stick your resume there. The amount of people I see with the green banner says they're open to work, they're trying to find a job, but then they want me as a recruiter to go, oh, I saw your profile. Let me send them a message, see if I can get their resume and I'll look at it and see versus, oh, there's your resume. It's right there. Great. I
Making it,
look at it.
make
I
it,
like the resume. Now I'm not reaching out to say, hey, can you send me the resume? I'm like, hey, I've seen your resume. I want to talk.
yeah, that
So
makes sense.
make it
Actually,
easy.
he's making it easy for you
Right.
as
Because
a
they're looking
recruiter.
at hundreds of people. Make it easy. Now, I will tell you, don't put your actual contact information on that resume
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because you don't want the bot scraping it.
yeah, yeah. That happens a lot. So, well, so we got posting, building a good profile. So you started doing this a year ago. Kind of tell me your journey, your LinkedIn journey, and where you're at, over the last 12 months.
Sure. So
What type of results?
I decided I was going to do it. It was one of those that if you're going to have LinkedIn, I'm going to use it. It was really to build my personal brand. And that's what I tell everybody is if you're going to post on LinkedIn, you're not building a company brand. You're not building it for anybody but yourself, because that's something you get to take with you throughout your career. And it's a way for you to have your own outlet on things that you find interesting to talk about. And so I started doing it. And I did a snapshot of what my LinkedIn results were kind of before I started this journey.
Okay.
And I was averaging like 30, 40 profile, people looking at my profile a month.
Okay.
So nobody was really looking at my profile. I'd post and I might get 400 and LinkedIn calls them impressions. Who's seen your post? Right. So I'd post something and maybe 400 people a month would see what I did. And I'd had an active account for 20 years. I had I think 1,200 followers. Nobody cared. I'd throw something up there. It was always normally self-serving. Hey, I've got an open job. Do you know anybody? Hey, we're hiring. Nobody cared. Nobody really engaged with it. It didn't do anything. And then I started that journey of just posting every day. And I built a routine for myself to post every single day and have for 365 days. And I did a snapshot. So in that time frame, over the last 90 days, I'm averaging about 450 people looking at my profile page a month.
Okay. Pretty good.
I've gained almost 2,800 followers. So I'm at 4,000 followers in that same time frame. But what's been cool is I'm averaging over the last 12 months about 250,000 post impressions a month.
Okay.
So I've had over 3 million impressions this past year.
Yeah. So explain what a post impression is for the folks out there.
Sure. So if I make a post, and if you're scrolling LinkedIn, it's got a fancy algorithm to show, if somebody you're connected to makes a post, it's going to pop up on their feed. So an impression is how many times does it pop up on somebody's feed? And so in the last year, the posts that I've made, and I've made about, I think I looked at it, it was right under 400 posts in the last year.
Okay.
Those 400 posts have been seen by over 3 million people.
Wow.
And it's generated all kinds of opportunities from people reaching out to me for jobs, clients reaching out to me for help, that I didn't have to do anything but take maybe 20 minutes a day and just slowly start building a brand that I'm finally starting to really see some actual results.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing is consistency, right? You got to do it every day. You got to be out there.
So if you can't do every day, and I know that committing to do it every day is frightening because I was like, okay, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to do this? And so what I did to kind of force myself is I made a post that said, hey, for the next 90 days, I'm going to post every day. And I kind of set it out there. And I told people I was going to do it. I'm like, hey, and I started with 30 days. Actually, the first post said I'm going to post every day for 30 days. And I did. I posted every day for 30 days. And then I said, all right, I'm going to do it for another 30. And then after 90 days, it became simple. But if posting every day is just not something you want to commit to, then post Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, post 3 days a week. or 2 days a week or one day a week, as long as it's, as you said it, you got to be consistent.
Yeah.
If it's once a month, that's 12 posts.
Yeah.
No one's going to notice you.
And it's similar to this podcast we're on, right? I made a commitment that I was going to come out 5 years ago when we started this every 2 weeks on a Thursday. So I'd come out twice a month, and I come on, and I've never missed one in 5 years.
It can be a little hairy, I'm sure, where you're like, crap, we got deadline, I got to get this out. But when you make that commitment, people start to see it. It's funny. What I realized is I would be talking to some of my clients or candidates, or when I was looking for a job myself, employers like, oh man, I see your stuff all the time. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you. And that's the funny thing. You have to get over the fact is you're probably not going to know people are seeing it or caring about it. And then you find out that they actually notice it all the time.
But they just don't
follow along quietly.
Yeah, they just don't comment.
Right. They're not engaging, but they're following.
Yeah. No, it's a nice feeling, right? I mean, like when I go out to some business, technology happy hours, I'll invariably run into someone I haven't run into for years. And the first thing they'll say is, man, hey, I love the podcast. I saw that episode with so-and-so on it. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know you were listening. So it's nice. Makes you feel good.
Yeah. That positive affirmation is nice, but it's something that you're not going to get in the beginning.
Yes, 100%. So I think you may have mentioned it before. What type of tools do you use to help you with your posting? Because, I mean, to me, it's like looking at a blank canvas every day. You talked about, posting on things you know about, but it's like someone gives me a blank canvas with some paint. I'm not sure where to begin. You know what I'm saying?
So
that makes sense?
When I started, I sat down and I just made a list of things I know that I'm like, you know what? If somebody asked me a question, I could talk about this for 5 minutes. And I just made a long list of those things. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to pick one of those items. And what I've done that's worked really well, and it's what I encourage people who want to start doing this to do, get your phone and just text to speech, you talking about that topic until you just run out of things to say. And you'll get a big blurb of speech that may take you 2, 3, 4 minutes of listening to yourself talk. And I take that text on my topic and I use ChatGPT to go, hey, take this idea and format this into something that I can use on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now, where most people, they then take that and they just post it right to LinkedIn, and it becomes real obvious as you scroll through your feed of, oh, well, they've got the rocket ship emoji and the EM dash, and they've got the, it's all very generic.
Yeah.
Then you have to edit it and make it sound like you. And also, if it's a really complex target, know who your audience is. If I'm trying to talk to other software engineers, I'm going to talk to software engineers. But if I'm a, director of IT looking for a job, my boss or my audience for this particular engagement might be a CFO.
Yes.
So I need to target that to whoever my audience is. And so I'll tell ChatGPT, okay, that's great. Now format it so that it appeals to this audience. Then there's a tool that I use called Hemingway Editor. It's a free online editor that will go in and help you break it down into easier to read chunks. And also, if it's a really complex target, help you adjust hey, I want this to really read at about a 9th grade reading level. So many, you'll write some of these and you're like, oh, this is a grade 16 reading level. Great. So the doctoral universe is going to love what I have to write, but my average audience is definitely not PhD. It's not who I'm writing to. And so it's a way to make it easier to read and make it still sound like you. So that's the biggest thing that, like with the Grok or ChatGPT, it doesn't sound like you until you go back and go, great, now I have the framework. Now let me massage it so it sounds like me.
Yeah.
And those are really the two biggest tools that I use on a regular basis. There's lots of other fun things that are out there, but those are really the two.
Nice. So before we sign off, Mike, let's do a little recap, like kind of what you should be doing. So the list, the guy out there who's looking for a job, guy or gal out there looking for a job, want to increase his profile on LinkedIn. Let's kind of do a couple of bullets here to like what he should be doing to
Sure.
kind of recap.
Step one, post today, right now. Think of a topic, post on that topic, do it again tomorrow, do it again the next day, and do that. While you're doing that, then make your profile look better. Make it more results oriented. Your LinkedIn profile is not your resume, so make it it's your selling deck about yourself, and just start posting. And the best advice I can give on that, it's those two things: start, don't stop, and make your profile that if they do see something, they click on your profile, you tell them, okay, now what? It's the old field of dreams. If you build it, they will come, which is great, but are they going to stay on your profile? If they look at it and go, nope, and they move on, you've lost that opportunity.
Yeah. Right. So I do have a question for you, kind of relating to job searching. So I noticed is that you can turn on and off open to work or whatever. I forget what that's even called. What are your thoughts on that?
So when I found myself in a job search, I turned it on.
Okay.
And when I'm looking for candidates, it's some of the behind the scenes stuff on the LinkedIn recruiter side of it that I can see who's clicked the open to work without the green banner, and it shows that. But if I'm looking for somebody that I need to move quickly on, that green banner is going to get more attention than the passive job seeker. So that green, I've been open to work banner tells me this is somebody who's active in their job search. And I'm more likely to reach out to them if I'm in an urgent search situation. If it's passive, I'll reach out to lots of people, but that green open to work is there. And if you're posting, your picture shows up with that green banner around it every time you post or you comment on somebody else's. And that's the other one. Comment on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Because your name and that little headline and that banner all shows up on their post, which means all the people who know them now get to see what you did.
Yeah, engagement, right? Just keep posting, getting engaged in conversation on different topics, and that's how you get your name out there as well.
So I tell people, post once a day and comment on 2 other people's posts every day, whether you're looking for a job or not, because the goal is to build your brand. So if you ever need something, and it was funny, when I was doing all this posting, I had multiple people reach out to me seeing if I was interested in a job, and I wasn't looking at the time.
That's funny. Yeah. It works, Mike. The bottom line, it works.
It's better than clicking apply and being one of 100 or 500 or 1,000 people who applied to the job.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anyone everyone I know that's tried that. I don't think anyone's ever gotten a job.
So I did a survey on LinkedIn earlier this year, kind of saying, hey, if you found a job in the last year, how did you find it? And it was half of it was networking.
Okay. That makes sense.
About a quarter of the others where they found it from a third-party recruiter. Not a single person got it by applying on a job board.
Nice. Yeah, no surprises. So my instincts were right on that then.
Well, and it's funny that I've had clients, post the job and then call saying, hey, I need a recruiter's help to fill this role. We posted this thing, and in 72 hours, we've got over 500 applications, and we don't have the time to go through all of this.
Yeah.
So, shocker, you end up in a black hole.
Yep, which is, exactly where you don't want to be. That's why, like you said, networking, building your profile, all helps.
Absolutely, because let them come to you. Inbound, if somebody messages you about a job, it's probably at least worth, going back to what we said before, have a conversation. Talk to them. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. You make another friend, right? You built your network. You're building out your network.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mike, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
So, find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. I'm at mkyle on LinkedIn. Reach out to me that way. It's funny that screen stays open all day. I have Outlook. I have my LinkedIn open at all times, no matter what I'm doing. So that is the easiest way to get a hold of me, whether you want to look at your profile, follow me. I talk a lot about what to do as a job seeker and what to do if you're trying to hire. Those are the two things that I talk about the most. And dig through post and my post archives, you'll see lots of things on how do I optimize my LinkedIn profile? How do I make a job description look good if I'm trying to hire? How do I fix my broken hiring process because we can't hire? Those are simple, easy things you can do.
All good stuff. Yeah. So, Mike, thanks for coming on to this. This was good. I think it was very informative. I love doing shows like this that we can help people, hopefully, right?
Absolutely.
And
I want to see your post. So that's my challenge back to you is more post.
Yep. I do some. I don't do as many as I should, but I do some. But you're right.
It's consistency is key.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. And I don't know if I know you're familiar with the social selling index.
Yep.
You know, I have actually a pretty good score, surprisingly, because I do post a fair amount, and but that's something else to consider too, is keep that, social selling index up.
Yeah, because that's what you want. You want finding a job is hard, so it's much easier to have them find you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, on that note, Mike, we'll call it a wrap for the show, and really appreciate you having you on. Like I said, you let people know how to get in touch with you. Good luck with your latest endeavor.
Perfect. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Well, that's another wrap for the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. This is Paul DeLegro signing off. Till next time.